Pablo Picasso Biography. Please print a copy of the reading and follow along with me as I read aloud. Spanish expatriate Pablo Picasso was one of the greatest and most influential artists of the 20th century, as well as co-creator of Cubism. Born in Malaga, Spain in 1881, Pablo Picasso became one of the greatest and most influential artists of the 20th century and the creator, with George Braque, of Cubism, a Spanish expatriate painter, sculptor, printmaker, and ceramicist and stage designer. Picasso was considered radical in his work. After a long, prolific career, he died on April 8, 1973, in Moguins, France. The enormous body of Picasso's work remains, however, and in legend lives on, a tribute to a vitality of the disquieting Spaniard with the sombre, piercing eyes, who superstitiously believed that work would keep him alive. For nearly 80 of his 91 years, Picasso devoted himself to an artistic production that contributed significantly to and paralleled the entire development of modern art in the 20th century. Early life and education. Born on October 25, 1881, in Malaga, Spain, Pablo Picasso's gargantuan full name, with honors, a variety of relatives and saints, is Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Palawan Nepocino Maria de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santisima Trinidad Mater Patricio Clito Ruas y Picasso. Picasso's mother was Donna Maria Picasso y Lopez. His father was Don Jose Ruiz Blasco, a painter and art teacher. A serious and prematurely world-weary child, the young Picasso possessed a pair of piercing, watchful black eyes that seemed to mark him destined for greatness. When I was a child, my mother said to me, "If you become a soldier, you will be a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope," he later recalled. "Instead, I became a painter and wound up as Picasso." Though he was a relatively poor student, Picasso displayed a prodigious talent for drawing at a very young age. According to legend, his first words were "peace, peace." His childish attempt at saying lapis, the Spanish word for pencil. Picasso's father began teaching him to draw and paint when he was a child, and by the time he was 13 years old, his skill level had surpassed his father's. Soon, Picasso lost all desire to do any schoolwork, choosing to spend the school days doodling in his notebook instead. "For being a bad student, I was banished to the calaboose, a bare cell within whitewashed walls, and a bench to sit on," he later remembered. "I liked it there because I took along a sketch pad and drew incessantly. I could have stayed there forever, drawing without stopping." In 1885, when Picasso was 14 years old, he moved with his family to Barcelona, Spain, where he quickly applied to the city's prestigious School of Fine Arts. Although the school typically only accepted students several years his senior, Picasso's entrance exam was so extraordinary that he was granted an exception and admitted. Nevertheless, Picasso chafed at the School of Fine Arts' strict rules and formalities and began skipping class so that he could roam the streets of Barcelona, sketching the city scenes he observed. In 1897, a 16-year-old Picasso moved to Madrid to attend the Royal Academy of San Fernando. However, he again became frustrated with his school's singular focus on classical subjects and techniques. During this time, he wrote to a friend, "They just go on and on about the same old stuff. Velasquez for painting, Michelangelo for sculpture." Once again, Picasso began skipping class to wander the city and paint when he observed gypsies, bakers, and prostitutes, among other things. In 1899, Picasso moved back to Barcelona and fell in with a crowd of artists and intellectuals who made their headquarters at a cafe called El Corte Gats, the Four Cats. Inspired by the architects, the anarchists and radicals he met there, Picasso made his decisive break from the classical methods in which he had been trained and began what would become a lifelong process of experimentation and innovation. The Blue Period, Blue Nude, La Vie, and other works. At the turn of the 20th century, Pablo Picasso moved to Paris, France, the cultural center of European art, to open his own studios. Art critics and historians typically break Picasso's adult career into distinct periods, the first of which lasted from 1901 to 1904, and is called his Blue Period, after the color that dominated nearly all of Picasso's paintings over these years. Lonely and deeply depressed over the death of his close friend Carlos Casanemas, he painted scenes of poverty, isolation, and anguish, almost exclusively in shades of blue and green. Picasso's most famous paintings from the Blue Period include Blue Nude, La Vie, and The Old Guitarist, all three of which were completed in 1903. In contemplation of Picasso and his Blue Period, symbolist, writer, and critic Charles Maurice once asked, "Is their frighteningly precocious style not fated to bestow the consecration of a masterpiece on the negative sense of living, the illness from which he more than anyone else seems to be suffering?" Rose Period, Gertrude Stein, Two Nudes, and more. By 1905, Picasso largely overcome the depression that he had previously debilitated him. Not only was he madly in love with the beautiful model, Fernande Olivier, he was newly prosperous thanks to the generous patronage of art dealer Ambrose Vollard. The artistic manifestation of Picasso's improved spirits was the introduction of warmer colors, including beiges, pinks, and reds, in what is known as the Rose Period. Break into Cubism. In 1907, Pablo Picasso produced a painting unlike anything or anyone else he had ever painted before, a work that would profoundly influence the direction of art in the 20th century. Las Demoiselles d'Avignon, a chilling depiction of 5 nude prostitutes abstracted and distorted with sharp geometric features and stark blotches of blue, greens, and grays. Today, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon is considered the precursor and inspiration of Cubism, an artistic style pioneered by Picasso and his friend and fellow painter George Braque. The Cubist paintings' objects are broken apart and reassembled in an abstracted form, highlighting their composite geometric shapes and depicting them from multiple simultaneous viewpoints in order to create physics-defying collage-like effects. At once destructive and creative, Cubism shocked, appalled, and fascinated the art world. It made me feel as if someone was drinking gasoline and spitting fire, Braque said, explaining that he was shocked when he first viewed Picasso's Les Demoiselles, but quickly became intrigued with Cubism, seeing the new style of a revolutionary movement. French writer and critic Max Jacob, a good friend of both Picasso and painter Juan Gris, called Cubism the harbinger comet of the new century, stating, Cubism is a picture for its own sake. Literary Cubism does the same thing in literature, using reality merely as menus and not as a means and not as an end. Picasso's early Cubist paintings, known as his analytic Cubist works, included The Three Women, Bread and Fruit Dish on the Table, Girl with Mandolin. His later Cubist works are distinguished as synthetic Cubism for moving even further away from the artistic typicalities of the time, creating vast collages out of a great number of tiny individual fragments. This concludes the first part of Pablo Picasso's biography.